You know, growing up for me, handheld gaming was one of my most favorite things to experience. I loved my NES, but I don't think my real love affair with gaming really started until this guy right here. I remember vividly when I got my Game Boy, being able to play Motocross Maniacs and Tetris and Super Mario Land on the go were honestly just kind of mind-blowing to me. And then it got even better with the Game Boy Color when we were able to play games that looked this good on a handheld console, to be able to play them wherever we wanted to. And the battery life was a lot better on the Color as well, don't forget that. It was something that really blew my mind. So I am a fan of the Game Boy family of products. I am a fan of the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color, and I love playing Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. So when I reached out to the team at ModRetro and asked them for an opportunity to review the Chromatic handheld, which plays Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, they were quick to say yeah, they wanted to see my take on it. So we're going to do a quick unboxing today. We're going to take a look at everything that's inside the box, see how it plays with the game that ships with it, which, spoilers, is Tetris, and we're going to circle back at the end and kind of give our final thoughts on things. But let's head over to the bench now and start the unboxing of the ModRetro Chromatic handheld. So with unboxing ModRetro's Chromatic handheld, I wanted to go into it fairly blind. Like, I had used it already. I had tried it out when I was visiting Metal Jesus out in Seattle last year, and I was really impressed with the device, but I hadn't spent a ton of time with it. So my knowledge of it and my kind of understanding of what it offered was fairly limited. Like, I had seen it at GameStop, and I had seen it at Jason's house, as I mentioned, but I hadn't really spent a ton of time with it. So getting it here in hand, and thank you to the team at ModRetro for sending it over for review, I was really excited to unbox it. And the first thing that struck me about this device was the premium feel. Because this isn't just a standard like molded plastic, injected plastic kind of device. This is a machine made of magnesium, so it feels premium in your hand, and it feels solid. Like, the weight difference between a standard Game Boy Color and a Chromatic is considerable. Not to the point where it's uncomfortable to handle, but it's something where you're going to notice. If you're holding one in one hand and one in the other, it's definitely something you're going to see. I'm looking at the website here, you're seeing that as I'm scrolling, and there are a bunch of different colors that are available. There is the standard gray, which has the nice kind of Super Nintendo purple buttons on it. There's the Midnight, which is the one I have here, the gray and black, which I really like the monochromatic look on it. I think that's really nice. There's the Wave one, which is a nice teal color. There's Leaf, which is green, which I really enjoy. There's the Inferno one, which is my personal favorite. Probably gonna have to pick one of those up for myself. I really love that color scheme. There's a yellow one, which is Volt. It's kind of Pikachu-esque. And then there's the bubblegum one, which reminds me of Mew, which I think is really cool. Now, on all of these, you have the option of the Gorilla screen or the Sapphire screen. The Sapphire screen is scratch resistant. They claim to be as resilient, basically, as everything but diamond. So it's something where they're really saying how impressive this screen is. And I didn't get one of those. I got one of the standard Gorilla screens, and it's, you know, Gorilla Glass is great. I've used it on phones before. I've used screen protectors from Gorilla Glass on phones before, so I've got no issues with that stuff. And I'm really impressed with this one, because the display is crystal clear and crazy good. Now, as I'm unboxing this, you're going to see, as I lift the actual Chromatic out, you're going to see what's underneath, and you get a set of AA batteries, 3 batteries, because that's what the system requires. But if you don't want to use standard batteries, they do sell a rechargeable brick on their site. It's $30. There's a bunch of other stuff on there as well. They have their own branded link cable. And there's also a mod kit, which I really like, which allows you to kind of change out the different button options and things like that that are available. And they offer connectable headphones that are on the standard 3 3/4 jack that are going to be in the same color scheme of what machine you already have. So you can do it to be completely color coordinated, or you can mix and match and add different colors as you see fit. Like, I'm kind of thinking I'm going to pick up the Inferno ones and add those to my already black and gray one, because I think that would look pretty cool. And inside, there's also a copy of Chromatic Tetris. And I discovered something kind of cool as I was doing this. I realized that it also works on my Game Boy Color. Like, I could toss that cartridge into my GBC and it worked fine. It didn't look as nice, but it worked really fine. Now, we're going to see later on this week, when I do kind of a side-by-side comparison with a bunch of different games on the Game Boy Color and the Chromatic, that the screen quality on this device is astonishingly good. Like, it is crystal clear. And that was something they actually claimed in their selling points for it, is that it's a perfect display, which I was skeptical of looking at it, because I was like, well, how good can a small 160 by 144 screen
be. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this one is perfect. It's an incredible screen. Like, I threw 6 different games at it, and I was really, really impressed with how good it looked on each and every one of them, especially when compared to my IPS screen modded Game Boy Color, which in my eyes looked great until I had them side by side. And then I was just like, wow, this is night and day in comparison. Now, one of the things it tells you as soon as you unbox this is that it tells you to update your firmware, and I was a little concerned about that because I run on Mac, but they do have a firmware updater for the Macintosh, so I was really happy about that. And updating couldn't be easier. You launch the app, you are prompted to turn on your Chromatic, you're prompted to plug it in via USB-C, and your firmware is updated within seconds. Like, it was one of the most painless firmware update processes I've ever experienced. It was great. I seriously was impressed with how quick and how easy it was. Now, as this is an unboxing, I wasn't necessarily going to do any gameplay here, but I really, really wanted to try Tetris out because, I mean, it's kind of the ubiquitous game for a Game Boy, right? Like, this is the one that everyone had. This is the most popular puzzle game of all time for a reason. It is a spectacular title. It's the greatest puzzle game of all time. And I wanted to see what was so kind of fancy about theirs. And I'm telling you guys, this is legit. It's an excellent version of Tetris. The classic music that you're familiar with from the Game Boy version is present. The gameplay is solid, but there's improvements here. It's not just standard Game Boy 1989 Tetris. There's some noted quality of life improvements here, like fast dropping and things like that. You can actually see what blocks are upcoming, more than just the next one coming up. You can actually see, I think, 3 of your next upcoming blocks, which is really nice. The gameplay is solid. There's a bunch of different game modes in play here that you're able to try out, and it just works. Like, I mean, it's Tetris, so like you would expect it to just work, but I was really impressed with how nice it looked and how well it played. And again, the quality of the build of the machine itself was honestly the most telling thing for me, because I love my Game Boy Color. Like, my Kiwi Game Boy Color was one of the first machines I bought again when I started playing and started collecting retro games. And to play the Chromatic immediately after playing on that Game Boy Color was just like, man, there's just so many changes inherent here and so many things present in this design and this build out that are just perfect. And before I forget, I really, really need to mention the speaker quality here, because I'm used to my Game Boy Color where turning it all the way up is kind of a struggle to hear what's coming out of the game. But on the Chromatic, you don't need to do that, because the speaker on this thing is incredibly powerful, and the sound quality is amazing. It is literally one of the best sounding handhelds I've ever heard. And it's really an awesome device for that kind of Game Boy and Game Boy Color enthusiast. One of the things they do say on both the website and in the box is that you're able to stream. And I was really curious about that, because one of the things that I'm kind of left to my own devices with when it comes to capturing Game Boy footage is I have to use my Retron for that, or I have to use an emulator. And I don't really want to do that. I would rather use hardware for that and capture it that way. And one of the things that they show you how is to stream it through OBS. And the only downside right now is that audio isn't going through the USB-C, which is it's a thing. I understand. It's not ideal, but the actual like gameplay and the screen capture is really kind of remarkable of how easy it was to set up. And props to the team at ModRetro for having step-by-step guides on how to make this look as good as it possibly can on OBS. Now, I'm impressed by this device. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, this was something where I was excited to review this because it's a new piece of hardware. It's not something, like I said, I had a whole lot of experience with outside of those couple of minutes at Jason's house trying it out. But to get it in hand and to play the software that was offered with it, which is the best possible scenario for it to perform well, I was impressed. There's also a bunch of different games that they are releasing on their own for either classic games that are being re-released under the Chromatic banner, or they're putting out new published games on their banner as well, which I was really excited about. One of the things I'm definitely going to be picking up at GameStop is the Toki-Tori collection. I love the Toki-Tori games. Very excited to have this on this handheld as well, because I think it's just kind of a natural fit. One of those perfect puzzle platformers that's great to have on the go. And I'm really excited to try it out. Now, we're going to go back to the camera now. I'm going to give you kind of my final thoughts on this. As I mentioned, there's one point that I said here that I think you need to take away from this. If this is something you're excited about, just remember, this is for Game Boy and Game Boy Color collecting enthusiasts. Let's go back to the camera now.
So I mentioned in the video how loud the speaker was, and I didn't really have a way to illustrate it at the time, but we're gonna do it real quick. This is my Game Boy Color. This is the ModRetro copy of Tetris that's in there. As you can see there, here it is right next to the mic. This is how loud it is. And that is held right up to the microphone. So we're gonna turn this off now, and we are going to turn on the Chromatic. We're gonna turn the volume all the way up. I'm gonna hold it over here, and you can hear how loud it is when it starts playing. The speaker on this thing is legit, y'all. This thing, it's so loud. It's so loud. And it was almost jarringly loud the first time I had it turned up all the way and I wasn't really paying attention. When that do-do-do-do kicked in, I was like, whoa, okay. I need to turn that down a little bit. So let's give final thoughts real quick on the ModRetro Chromatic here. I am a huge fan of this thing. I am absolutely enamored with the build quality. I don't feel like this is something that's going to break. I don't feel like this is something where I've experienced with other, let's say, third-party consoles that have been trying to replicate classic consoles, that this is a toy. I feel like this is a serious piece of machinery. And I think it comes with a serious piece of machinery's price tag. This is a $200 system, so understand what you're getting into as far as cost goes. If you are a fan of the Game Boy, if you are a fan of the Game Boy Color, if this is something that is in particular an important thing of collecting for you, you need this in your life. If you are a content creator that covers Game Boy and Game Boy Color stuff, there are worse options than this to have in your arsenal, because streaming is super easy. The bummer on the music is something that I really hope they address soon. I hope they're able to find a solution to pass the audio through the USB-C, but for now you can also connect a male-to-male audio jack from the device into your headphone port or into your microphone port on your PC or your Mac and have it work that way. There are so many things that I like about this, as I mentioned. I love the build quality. I love the different games that they're making for themselves. I love the style of it. I am really talking myself out of buying another copy of this device to get the Inferno Color, because I don't need it right now, but I am probably going to put it on my Christmas list, if that makes sense. I am just really impressed with what this machine offers. If you are a Game Boy and Game Boy Color enthusiast, it's a no-brainer for me. You need it. It's a fantastic device. If you're a casual with Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, you probably don't need something like this in your collection. It's going to be fine to just have an older system, maybe mod the IPS screen, get someone to do that for you, and that'll be enough. But I am telling you, putting them side by side and playing the same game side by side and looking at the visual quality of this screen here on the Chromatic absolutely blew my mind. To me, this is a must-own if you're a fan of the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. I do wish it played GBA games. Like, that is my only complaint, literally, with it, is that it does not play the GBA library, because I would love to see what this machine is able to do with Game Boy Advance stuff. I hope that's something that they have in the works for down the road. I would love to see their take on a GBA. Just this build quality alone, with that classic kind of oblong sideways GBA, not an SP, like a standard classic GBA, I would love to see. I hope that's something that they have coming soon. Stay tuned next week. I had originally said in the video that it was going to be later this week. I'm going to do this next week because I want to make sure that I'm able to give this the time it deserves for a side-by-side gameplay comparison with 6 different games. I need to go back and look at the footage and make sure it's going to be good enough for you guys, because if it's not, I need to recapture stuff, so understand that. But as a spoiler, everything I tried looked fantastic. So stay tuned for that. Let me know, do you have a Chromatic? Have you tried this out? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Take a look at the website. Let me know what games you're excited about that the ModRetro team is putting out under the Chromatic banner. I think it's super cool. Like I mentioned, the Tokitori collection. I am going to GameStop this weekend and buying it because it's just awesome. Until next time, folks, I've been Jay. Appreciate you being here. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Engagement helps the channel out. Click subscribe if you want to stick around. We're on our way to 18K. I'd love to be at 20K by the end of the year. Don't know how likely that is, but hey, fingers crossed. We got 4 months, right? But until then, folks, remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.